everybody. How's it going? It's going all's worth? Good. That's Kibi's word for awesome. So if anyone hears that when he's asking questions to people, he means awesome. Well, he doesn't mean awesome, but it means awesome. So how was Victor's talk, for those who have just been? Oh, Sam, that is cutting. I thought he was just insanely intelligent, and most of it went over my head. But some of it, I was like, oh, I'm really inspired, but I don't know what to do about that, because I don't know what I'm inspired to do. You know what I mean? It was very technical. He literally had Nuke. You know what Nuke is? You probably do. He did his whole presentation in Nuke, pretty much. And these guys haven't touched Nuke yet because they're After Effects people at this stage. But those of you who are going on to do it at HE, on Brian's course, you'll be using Nuke next year, probably. Yeah, first year. So anyway, enough about Victor. We're not here for Victor. We're here for Alex. This is Alex Hollings. He's come up from Brighton, which took 3.5 hours or something. Yeah. So we're very, very, very lucky that he's taken a 7-hour round journey to see us today. I've known Alex for a few months now because he's been helping me write that content creation course that you all know I'm doing, which is why I'm Profger. Thanks, Kiwi. So yeah, Alex is brilliant. I'm really excited for you to see what he gets up to. And I also think he's really relevant to what a lot of you can do with the skills that you get after the 2 years on this course. There's so many ways you could market yourself after you've finished, and I think Alex is a perfect example of one of those ways where you can use lots of skills you've learned and put them into your own freelance career. Although, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's worked extremely hard to be able to do that since leaving university. So he's going to be talking to you about how he grew up in the boom of YouTube as a platform to share content, leading to his passion for animation before embarking on growing and transforming the skills into a varied and creatively fulfilling career with plenty of room to keep on daydreaming. Dreaming, not daydreaming, sorry. Yeah, my bad. You're going to learn about the connections you make before, during and after college and how they can make a difference when you may not expect to. Do I need to say how you... Yeah, I need to say it. Okay, if there's a fire alarm, you need to basically get out of the building and go behind onto Brook Street. Make sure to take some pictures, tag Alex, tag Confetti, do hashtag Industry Week 22 as well. The other day I told them to do Industry Week 20. But I don't know if anyone noticed. But yeah, you might win £50 on Amazon cards. I think you guys are doing really well at posting, so you could win. So keep going. That's it. So yeah, Alex, thanks for coming. Can we give Alex a warm welcome? Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's honestly a privilege to share my journey with like-minded creatives, and I hope my the time we have together provides an insight into how I turned my animation education into not just a single career path, but something that built a world of opportunities that I'd never expected. That's sort of the gist of today, and so yeah, I'm referring to it as unique careers in animation because these are things that I didn't expect to get out of my the education I had, and where it took me. So just a little bit about me. I came here from Brighton, as Jackie mentioned, and I currently operate as a full-time freelancer, which a year ago I never really expected to be doing, but there's been some moments in my career that just happened, and I'm very grateful to be in this position now and have these opportunities like to talk with you guys. And I feel like with the right mix of determination and luck, I've been able to leave creative stamps on different studios and agencies, as well as in-house working for brands. So I hope that sort of plethora of areas is covered in this talk. And yeah, so I consider myself to be these 4 things because I dream about doing lots of different things. So a 2D animator, a motion graphics artist, a designer, and a video editor, because I feel that these roles have the perfect sort of balance between what I consider to be challenging and creatively fulfilling, which is something I always strive for whenever I'm working. In terms of my education, yeah, I studied animation at Lincoln between 2015 and 2019, and I've been lucky enough to work with some of these names, actually all of these names, and a few others which I couldn't fit on there. And yeah, but yeah, looking back, I was some very embarrassing drawings here. I'm very sorry. I was always thinking about drawing from a very early age. Always, drawing stuff. And when I wasn't drawing stuff, wanting to be drawing stuff. I love cartoons. I love films. Mainly animated films, and that love hasn't gone away over the years. That's something that's stuck with me. I would jump between coming up with my own branding for things and coming up with characters, and then how I would market them, which led to a weird fascination with marketing and advertisement, which kind of crept its way back into my life later that I wasn't expecting. But yeah, if I look back at the moment in which that I was truly fascinated by the craft of making things, I point to this particular Finding Nemo documentary, which I apparently watched on a VHS, according to my dad. And I believe this was the first time that I actually saw the behind the curtain, or the process of creating anything in the world of animation, film, anything. And I was just hooked on it from seeing it. From then on, I was obsessed with, how these, stories are told, but also the number of artists and the number of talents that go into it. When you look from a perspective of a viewer, you don't see the hundreds of people that are involved in these processes. And I'm lucky enough to be able to have worked on projects that I feel I felt like I am compatible with, and I've taken from the inspiration, this love of character and making people laugh, and the stories, and I try and inject that into not just the television work that I've been able to be a part of, but also just into everyday assets, things that require a little bit of personality put into it. So yeah, that's sort of the little background. That's me. And you probably guessed I'm very introverted, and I used to be, and still am a bit shy. But I'm grateful to be talking to all of you, and this is putting me out of my comfort zone. I know that working in a creative industry puts anyone out of their comfort zone. I hope that talking with you guys today will help you guys also find confidence in embarking on your unique career within animation. And yeah, so, I chucked this one in as well. In terms of the dreams that I have in this industry, I want to be able to watch back animation I have worked on for an existing series on television, something I almost have done. And maybe one day I'd love to develop my own original funded animated series for a streaming platform. And maybe also be a part of a feature film in some capacity. So very high, lofty dreams. But I truly believe that working hard can, land you close to them. So I've been lucky to, I'm only 25. I've had my fingers in a lot of pies already, and I'm not going to sort of, stop dreaming at this stage. But yeah, in terms of the earliest point in which I can consider I started proactively making things creatively, I think back on 2012, which for some reason I decided to create a video every day and release it online, which was a lot of work, but I kind of regret it in a way. At the time, I was like, why did I put myself up to this? I was, going into finishing my GCSEs, and I realized in retrospect that this was the last time that I truly had the freedom to be able to make something for myself without there being obligations in the way in terms of work and higher education. I had this period of time after school which I could put time into, and I did, and I kind of forced myself to. But yeah, it was for fun and just a bit of a challenge. Put myself out of my comfort zone, talking to camera, creating things, but also just helping to figure out the unique things that I like to do, because I like the idea of making lots of different things, but it doesn't mean I'm really good at them all. So this was a great platform to, even at this age, to experiment, constantly experiment every day. And I look back on this time as a pivotal moment, really, in my not just my career, but also just shaping me as a person, for sure. And yeah, during this time, I actually, one of the many things that I tried was animation, and I was kind of pushed into it by my best friend, and who was like, we like animation, we like web cartoons, and the rise of Newgrounds, and the like YouTube animations and everything, Eddsworld, and we were like, let's just try and make something like that, and that wasn't me who pushed us into doing it, but we did it, and so we started, and that's where things really clicked into place. This was I didn't think I was good enough to do this, and it took someone else to really be like, together we have a vision, and I fell in love with it. So leading out of there, this I was able to sort of take the this passion for drawing and animation that I'd got during my the year of figuring things out, and I took every single course that I could at my sixth form that allowed for some sort of creative expression that involved computers, because I wanted to dedicate as much time to it. I don't know why I took geography. I think I had to. But even then, thinking about it in retrospect, it was like, that was my bit of my marketing brain thinking about demographics and stuff, and still thinking about audiences. I also probably just had to take an academic course. But yeah, so I tried to just use every opportunity I could, and also spent time outside of school creating things, making cartoons, making little animations and sharing them online, taking what I'd started in 2012 and not just like practice, but try and create a brand around it and try and build an audience, which doing alongside school was it was tough, but I was lucky enough to be doing stuff at school that I enjoyed and didn't feel like was a drag, and I made it work somehow. I don't really understand, but yeah, during this journey, I met people online who I was fans of and who were fans of me, and I built a little audience of people, but also met friends and people who I would work with, people who I didn't work with, but followed along their career, and some people who I still follow to this day, and I'll get back to that a bit later. But yeah, and the collection of what I'd been able to do between 2013 and 2015 outside of school made for the start of a portfolio, which I wasn't consciously collecting things, but I was just like, oh, this is stuff that I've made that I can use, and I'm still proud of some of the stuff. But yes, this led me to university. I went to Lincoln University, as mentioned. There's me beaming like an idiot. I don't know. I don't like that photo. But during this time, the 3 years that I was there, we were sort of homing for me at least personally, it was advancing and homing the craft that I had started in my own time. In college, I didn't have an animation class, which I kind of made that for myself. And in the first year, we were animating in Flash, which is what I was using before, so I was able to sort of have more of an excuse to practice with it, I guess. And we were teaching each other in the class because everyone came from different backgrounds. It was kind of getting everyone up to a similar level of understanding of the software. And you learn stuff all the time by just even revisiting things. You discover new ways to do stuff. So that was the value out of that point. But in the second year, we were introduced to 3D animation through Maya, which I was very resistant on because I was quite stuck up of being like 2D is everything. I want to be the 2D guy, and so a lot of it didn't sink in at the time. But during that period, we were taught the basics of from the animation principles that we were taught in the first year, advancing them into how to translate them into 3D, the world of shading and modeling and rigging, which is it makes me scared. But from halfway through the second year, we were given a choice of do we want to go further into the world of 3D and we have 3D classes, or do we want to go back to 2D. And I went back to 2D, which is something that I think about in retrospect is I probably should have stuck out with 3D, but because of this, in the second year, I was able to put those skills into making a short film. In the second and third year, we made sort of short films. In the first year as well, but it was more just like a tiny little thing. And yeah, if I hadn't have chosen 2D, I wouldn't have made that. And it's one of my favorite things that I've made, to be honest. So that's that. But yeah, the things that I learned sort of coming out of the experience of university is, as when I was, studying at sixth form, I needed time outside of that class to teach myself more things. And this amazing facility you guys have got here, I didn't have anything like that, to like be able to immerse myself in creativity. So I kind of built it for myself, but that I think that's extended out anyway to always try and be making stuff is what I learned from this. But college and university, I think, really does give opportunities to be creative with a safety net, or be okay to fail at things, because you trust me, even now you learn way more from failing than succeeding. It's especially in the numbers game in terms of marketing assets that you make if you go into that field of work, because they'll tell you when something hasn't worked. But if something does work, they often just like shrug it off, and you don't learn anything really. You're just like, okay, I'll do the same thing again. But yeah, this time also allowed me to, for the first time, do a group project. I used to do, in my school and college years, I chose every opportunity when doing a presentation to actually make a film and shoot it with my friends and everything, and take any opportunity to not do a PowerPoint, apart from today apparently, and make a film with the subject. They were very silly. I'm not going to be showing you any of those today because they are incredibly embarrassing, and I would leave the building. But those were like foundational things as well. And but this was the first time doing a group project with people for a long-term thing. This was like majority of the year that we were working together and learning about the dynamics and the relationships, and how the way people work, the times people work. That was really valuable to me. And you'll meet friends for life, I hope. That's what I got out of college and university. And that's I still work with multiple people from my uni days, and enjoy their company. I'm seeing one of them tomorrow, actually. But I also feel that when you are done with college and university, or wherever you decide to go, don't stop taking classes, especially if you're thinking about animating, the things that you don't always learn in school and college, like if you're animating characters, thinking about acting, expression, the how to emote, taking acting classes, life drawing if you are into drawing, and thinking about how things are structured, not just for the technical side of it, but the social aspect of it. It's so comforting to me to find people who are similarly minded creatively, and it can be a little bit isolating once you finish college and university if you don't continue to surround yourself with those sorts of people. So it's a bit of a long spiel. But yeah, that's another bad photo of me. So as mentioned, I made some short films in my time at uni, and I'm going to be showing you a clip of the first one, because I'm not going to show you everything because it's not that good. But I will be showing you the second one that's sort of stitched together. Just an example of the kind of style of things that I wanted to make. The first film, the idea was that the whole thing is drawn in black and white with one main color, and then the color, that hue basically changes throughout the film based on the emotion that the character is feeling, and linking like color to emotion. I don't know how well it worked, but I'll show it anyway. And then the second one is a chase scene that we were tasked with creating, coming up from scratch, storyboarding, animating, and yeah, that's that. So enjoy.
Love is a powerful one, isn't it? Important, too. Probably because of its power. Its power to do good. Its power to trust. Power to commit. Power to communicate. Its power to believe.
Yeah. A strange one, but no, it was fun. I've always liked to make things with, you know, trying to subvert expectations a little bit. So taking any opportunity I had to make something like that was, yeah, really nice. But yeah, so I finished university at this point, and I hadn't yet graduated. I was, you know, a little bit nervous, so to speak, about where I would end up, because you know, in the university I went to, the connections weren't particularly strong with the industry, particularly 2D animation that I wanted to find myself in, and so I was a little bit worried. But a unique opportunity landed on my lap. So I came back home from university, and it was probably about a month or so after that, maybe a couple weeks. And I was doing a bit of freelance, but not like anything more than just something to keep my mind ticking over. And I got tagged in a Facebook post. It was a comment from, there's a bit of a tenuous link, but there was a comment. I was tagged in by the sister of a friend that I had met through working on those cartoons back outside during college. Yeah, his sister tagged me in a post that was like, hey, we are looking for a designer urgently, pretty much designer, they're referred to as, to do some stuff for next week, basically, this agency in London. And so I wasn't sure exactly what to do at first, because going from it was very scary, obviously, just to put myself forward for something which, in an industry I'd never worked in before, with a company that I didn't know anything about, other than going on their website and feeling a bit scared by the client names and whatnot. But I managed to build up the courage to actually say something and message, and things moved really, really quickly after that. There was it was to cover holiday, basically, for another designer there. So they wanted me for a week, and they asked, can you use this software? Can you use the Adobe stuff? And luckily I had built up that skill set, going before, during, and after my time in college, to be like, yeah, I can make stuff in this. And it was luck, and the fact that I really went for it, that I was there the next week. They wanted me down immediately, and I was, I lived in Sheffield at the time, so a bit of a journey. But I was lucky enough to stay with people in London, and commute in, and yeah, for that week it was just like a whole new industry had just opened up for me that I never expected. My first day, they asked me to use After Effects, and I lied. I had never used After Effects. I had used it, but I did not know it competently enough. But I adapted really quickly and asked lots of questions. I think that I was initially very scared to ask questions. You think about this like new industry, landing in a new industry with people who are a number of years older than me, feeling a little bit like I'm, not meant to be here. But I think that because I kind of adapted quite quickly and said yes to a lot of things, they were very much like how you say, they were adapting to my situation when normally they would get someone who's had, years of experience. They just found themselves with this person who had no experience and was able to do what they were asking. So I never tried to take that for granted. And very quickly on my first day, I actually ended up making stuff for BBC Radio 6 Music, which was a bit of imposter syndrome on that. That's like a big brand that I was familiar with, but basically I started working on stuff for 6 Music and did some stuff that week for BBC Asian Network, Radio 2, and 1 week turned into 2 weeks, turned into a month, and I ended up working there for a year and a half. So that one little post on Facebook pretty much changed my whole life. And I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, standing here, if it wasn't for that seed that I planted back in college by networking. Yeah, networking. Having friends in the industry that and making stuff with them. Making yourself, showing people that you are creative in that way. I soon became sort of the main designer, the lead designer, whatever, for this agency's output of BBC Radio 1 stuff. So, and what that means is I was making stuff for their social media platform, their social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, lots of memes, lots of like compilations of moments from live performances. Luckily, I'm very much into music, so it was a nice fit for me, and it was nice to be making content of stuff that I was not just familiar with, but had a passion for on the side, and I'm very grateful for that. I did some stuff for, they were just starting their podcasting, sort of this is around the time where everyone started to have a podcast. So David Tennant had a podcast, and they basically threw it to us, the social team, to be like, make a design for this thing, and then we all did designs, and then somehow David Tennant actually signed off on my design. So thank you, David, because soon after I left this company, they were actually bought by Sony, which is pretty crazy. So I can add Sony to my client list, even though I didn't technically work for them. So that an example of things that live on past your time working at a company. I also was invited to do work at some live events, which is again something I never thought I'd do. Going and helping to report on live events, cutting live performances as they come from the BBC's feed, being in the offices, sharing them on socials, and then those clips will be picked up by the artists. Lots of reactive content, which means making stuff that is relevant to the moment, that is very quick turnarounds. So which can be a blessing and a curse, because it's like, oh, I don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but also they want more and more and more and more. There was a time at this company where we were in a meeting and I was told that BBC Radio 1, in order to compete, the Instagram themselves recommended that the Radio 1 account make 15 posts a day, which made me shiver a little bit. And luckily it wasn't just me. This was a combination of the agency side and the in-house side. A brand will have a team of designers on the inside and will often work with outside agencies to pick up the slack and do specialist stuff. And we'll get back to in-house stuff a bit later. And yes, I also worked on the night of the Brits at the O2, which again, something really cool, kind of, unique opportunity I wasn't expecting out of an animation degree. But as mentioned, it was very busy. It was a very fast-paced environment. Not just that, but in terms of the workload, but in terms of the environment, working in London, and coming from a place where I was working hard, but I was like, it wasn't always coming at me. I was, making stuff for myself to make a lot of the time outside of uni. So I adapted quickly to the demands, but I think because they saw that I was very much like proactive and wanted to say yes to a lot of things, because I was young and new, and the brands were seeing, oh, he's making lots of stuff, let's throw more stuff at him because he can do it. It definitely led to a period about a year in where I felt rather burnt out, and I didn't know it at the time. I didn't understand I kept telling myself that this is my fault, that I'm not keeping up with these demands that I've set myself, or these standards. But I knew at that point that I had to do something about it, because it wasn't. It was going to be. I didn't know where it would lead me, and also I started this journey truly with a passion for animation. Yes, marketing, but it was the stories and the characters that really invited me into the world of creation. And I started asking these questions like, when am I going to be able to, how and when am I going to be able to transition from where I am right now to where I want to be? And so at this point, feeling a bit burnt out, thinking about the future, my housing situation I was in at that time was sort of changing. I needed to find a new place to live. I knew that I had to do something. So as mentioned, in-house work, this was told to me almost as a bit of like a joke in agency, as of like, oh, nothing happens when you work in-house. That's how slow it is, that's how like, slower paced it is. I think agency life can sometimes seem a little bit like they pride themselves on the pushing people to their limit, whereas the attitude, from what I heard for working in-house, was people taking their time and stuff, and also there being layers of bureaucracy between the creation and the the person who sets the idea out, and when it goes out. So you think about a brief being sent out of what's being made, has to go through so many different stakeholders, and then that comes to, that's delegated, and then you create it, and then it has to go back, and various. It was a slow process, but I believed this is what I needed to have time to think, have those times between working and creating projects to assess my plan, basically, of how am I going to turn this into the experience I truly want. So in November of that year, of 2019, I was still working in London at this agency. I applied for a number of jobs at Nestle, and then they basically were like, okay, we get it, you want to work with us. So they realized, we can combine these. There was like basically the bullet points I showed you at the start, the animator, the video editor, the motion graphics. They combined it into what's known as a digital content creator, which you'll hear a bit more about later. But I applied, and I wasn't banking on getting this job, but there was a pretty quick turnaround to them wanting to interview me. Went on a couple interviews, so that's where I live now. I moved to Brighton in January. So before I was even offered the job, I moved because I had to. And I moved to Brighton and commuted every day, apart from one day, back when working from home was quite a stigma in the creative world, especially in where I was working. It was seen as impossible. But I was sort of commuting in most days of the week, getting very tired. But I did it because I needed this new environment, and I loved it. But I also wanted to trust that if I didn't get this job at Nestle, I would find something else. And you know, I don't think this is that good advice, to be honest, because I think having the security is important. Having the job security is important. But you know, I think I was in a point mentally where I had to change something, and I was hoping that other things would slot into place at the time. So yeah, I went on holiday soon after moving, and sort of took that time to step away from the busy life of working in London and think about the bigger dreams. Like I said, trying to slow down a bit in my head, and felt really inspired. I went to California, went to Disneyland, and was like, oh yeah, I like Disney. So I was basically thinking about how could I make the steps, and really banking on this, you know, basically taking that time to be like, if I am offered this job, would I take it? And by the end of it, I was like, yes, that I think I will. And so yeah, I'd done both my interviews for that before I went on holiday. I landed back in London and checked my email, and I'd been offered the job. So I felt a bit of relief. But with that came, you know, a lot of fear of, you know, leaving not just a first job, but a job that I fell into, which required so many years of experience beforehand for a different situation. You know, what would I think? You know, what would people think that I would leave this opportunity? Would they think I'm making the wrong decision? Am I, you know, am I wasting this opportunity? And I was sort of pressured quite a lot to stay. You know, more money and, you know, an extra day off working from home. But I knew I had to keep going. There was a reason why I looked for other opportunities in the first place. And yeah, so that's what happened. I got offered the job in February, and 2 weeks later, world was in lockdown, and then I had to not only transition into working from home full time in my old job, but then changed to this new job, and you know, we all understand how strange that is. So I don't need to harp on that. But as expected, or as hoped, I should say, it allowed me to find time and joy to create projects outside of my 9 to 5, and during my 9 to 5, those periods in which I was at my desk and had my equipment and you know, got all my other projects in line, and you know, was able to use this computer that Nestle had given me to make great stuff. And outside of my work, it was what I needed, and it definitely solidified this thing of like, I need to do whatever I can to make it more sustainable. And yeah, I got to finish some projects, including I did a whole month of similar, sort of in the vein of the 2012 project of every day in June or July, I can't remember which month, of 2020, making a new 2D animation, and sort of just under like a couple hours of this slot that I'd give myself in the day, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I, you know, if the situation were different. And I also was able to work on some of my old YouTube stuff again, which is nice, because that, like mentioned, that was how I started really practicing animation. So it was nice to have time to go back into it, and I got to do the second episode of this skit show that I'd started. And yeah, I'm going to play you a little clip to hopefully give a bit of a giggle in the middle of this thing. Sorry if it's loud.
Oh man, I'm not feeling too good in the head today. Sometimes you just have those days, you know?
Yeah, dude, I understand. You just gotta start drinking more water.
Oh, I mean, I should. It's just everyone's starting to turn on me and just like purposefully bring me down for their own benefit. I don't know how to feel about it.
Cha, just drink some more water.
Things are getting real. Too real. I feel like my life is crumbling down in front of my eyes, and there's nothing I can do about it. Is there a God?
Drink more water!
I realize now I was drinking water during that. That wasn't planned. But yeah, that was my the female voice here is my girlfriend, and we met through this, you know, that period of time during college that working on animated projects. She's a voice actor, and we've been together 6 years now, and it truly is crazy cool what like these experiences where they can lead you later down in life. So yeah, 2021, weird year, because I was didn't know what was happening really, but I started the year with this passion of like, okay, I've had 2020 to sort of build up my confidence enough to want to go into this industry. How do I actually start making this? And it felt like starting from scratch in a way. I was like doing lots of research, which is, I'd studied animation, and there's talk of some animation roles in the career that I was, in the in the university I was attending, but there was a lot of unique roles that I had no idea about, and discovering the different technical and creative jobs that exist in the industry was brand new for me. So I was, emailing recruiters, just asking questions, and trying to, getting in contact with people who work in animation, and then trying to get some sense of guidance or tutoring in terms of guiding me where I want to go. And what I learned was that if you don't have a specific thing in mind that you want to go into animation with, then they can't do much to help you, because, everyone's time is very precious. And if you know what what specifically you're into, then they're more likely to help you. Because I was asking lots of things like, I want to work in animation, and then they'd be like, that's great. What do you want to do? And I'd be like, I don't know. Tell me. Which, I had to learn the hard way that, doing the research and figuring out what sparks the most was paramount at that point. And I'm still on that journey, really. I was looking for ways to sort of get my foot in the door into studios, and I found that the position of scene prep artist was a way in, and I'd never heard of this role beforehand, but it is specifically you are the first point of call when production starts on. It kind of blurs the lines between pre-production and production on an animated TV series. And like I mentioned, I was like, this was my dream, to work on an animated TV show. So when this opportunity to work as a scene prep artist came up, I was, I threw everything at it, trying to like sort of say, hey, I've never worked in animation TV before, but I have all this, and these are the transferable skills. And I didn't really know the software that well, the software of Toon Boom Harmony, which is the software we would end up using at this job. But I had to sort of explain how, I knew After Effects, and I knew Flash, and there was these transferable skills and everything. And those were things that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't have had at least that level of experience. We weren't taught Harmony in university, and I wish that every animation course would offer it, because it truly is the industry standard right now. And I'll talk a bit about that later. But it's sort of a similar role to like a layout artist in 3D, if anyone knows that sort of thing. In charge of like, you've got all the different parts of an animation in terms of rigs for the characters, backgrounds. You've got the sound from the animatic, and your job is to match everything up so that it kind of plays as a work in progress of what will like. So the director can basically look at it and be like, okay, that's a good framing of this shot. This character's looking the right way, etc. And then those files are then given to animators to work on and actually do the movement of the characters. And I thought this would be great, because this is not, in my eyes, it wasn't a particularly demanding job, because it wasn't full-on animation, but it was still in the industry I wanted to work in. So I went for it. During my time there, I ended up working with an incredible team of artists. I mean, Cartoon Saloon was a dream studio for me to work with, Irish-based studio. And the studio, technically I was working for Dog Ears, which was like a studio that went in like a co-production with Cartoon Saloon, but it was definitely, the show was in a cartoon saloon style, excuse me. And unfortunately, I can't show you any of it because it's all under NDA. So there's just this blank screen that's very underwhelming. But yeah, I mean, the peek behind the curtain that I loved so much, I was able to be in there. But it was all remote. And what I learned really quickly was, as much as I love the idea of working in animation, I really wanted that energy of other people. And this was 2021. This was like, you know, uncertainty about whether or not people would go back into the office. Should people be not forced, but suggested to go back in? And, you know, I was set up to work remotely, and it went fine, but it was very isolating. I felt like, you know, I was sat here working on this cool thing, and I couldn't show anyone because it was all under NDA. And it turned out to be quite a technical job, which eventually led me to realize that I'm not as technically minded as I thought I was. But I got lots of experience out of this, including like how to use this software that I wasn't taught in university. We were given time to train in the software, which is something I didn't realize that studios will, you know, will not just train you in how to use the characters or use the assets that are unique to the production, but also the software in which you're going to be using. That was really valuable. That's something I took away. I also just, you know, over Zoom, but speaking to my bosses and people I'd be working with about the industry, learning everyone knows each other pretty much. Contracts are always really short term in TV animation, so there's like people will jump around between studios all the time and bump into people that they've already met. And yeah, so like I say, it was a unique opportunity I wasn't expecting, but I knew I wanted to take from it and keep going. You know, I felt like I couldn't sit still really, and yeah, I had this. You know, I stayed in it for a while because I was like I stayed in it probably longer than excuse me than I'd want, because I ended up getting, you know, it was a bit of a difficult time mentally, dealing with this idea of this is what you always wanted. Why aren't you like loving it every day? But yeah, I was like, I'm going to miss out if I don't, you know, if I'm not staying here. And then I was approached about doing an animation test for a show, which is, if you remember the dreams, the number one dream, to animate on a television show. And I did the test because I was like, this is a great opportunity. I know the software now. I can apply my skills from uni and my experience working in social media and whatnot, and try and, you know, let them see in some way that I have the skills. And yeah, I passed the test, which was crazy. I interviewed. They offered me the job, and then they ghosted me, which was just bizarre. They were like, oh, we're going to give you your contract. We just have to check with our lawyers. That was that was September 2021. I heard from them twice for the rest of the year. So, you know, just basically being like, oh, we're still waiting on the contracts. Me being like, I can start right now, just let me start. But no, they're really, really unprofessional attitude, which is a shame to say because, you know, I looked up to this idea. And yeah, it was a difficult period of not understanding whether or not all this time and effort that I put into transitioning my career away from something that I was like quite established at the time in the social media asset creation, whatever, digital content creator stuff. I moved away from it because I wanted to chase this career, and it felt like, despite my best efforts, there was these things stopping me. So, I mean, yeah, even during my time at working at Cartoon Saloon, I was offered a job with much higher pay because I took a pay cut to work there as well, to do stuff for social media again. And I had to say no, because I truly believed that if I went back and worked full time for a company working in social media for brands and everything, that I wouldn't have that time to grow. So I was actually working freelance on the side during my time at Dog Ears with Nestle again. I kept up a good relationship with them, and was able to sort of, on the weekends, which, you know, work and work, it's not always pleasant, but I was looking for something creative. And as I mentioned, scene prep, very technical. I wanted to do something creative, so I was doing that on the side, and I managed to build up enough of a regular part-time, basically freelance career, that when everything was like lining up at the end of last year, and it was like, you know, I'm working in this job that I'm not loving because it doesn't sit right with my head, because I'm not that technically minded. I'm feeling a bit of a failure in that regard, and having, you know, a pot of cash and a few clients interested, I was sort of convinced by my partner to basically be like, try freelancing. You've done the hard work. Just see what happens. And yeah, it turned out to be a really good next step for me, honestly. It's obviously very new for me now. It's only the beginning of March, or mid-March, or wherever we are. But yeah, I think from when I left working for Cartoon Saloon, I was, you know, hustling, doing everything I can. To get new clients, to try and market myself, think about myself as a brand, which was very strange. I had built up brands beforehand in terms of like my YouTube stuff, but this was like removing all walls from it and being like, people know you for doing this sort of social media work, just putting myself forward for as many opportunities as I wanted to, but also as I needed to, and saying yes to a lot of things again. But it actually has provided me with freedom to dedicate, you know, time to certain projects on certain days. There's, I can, right now I'm in a position where I'm working as kind of like full-time, but as a freelancer for, I guess, part-time, basically, 2 days a week working for a studio under a freelance contract. But that allows me 3 days to do other projects, like work with other clients, work on my own projects. Like I've started a comic this year as a way of just like constantly trying to make something new creatively every week, come up with new ideas, get my brain ticking over. And what I'm learning is, now that I'm in here, is that the industry is really falling into freelance world. Like that agencies and in-house people will hire freelancers as well as have people on staff, which is something I wasn't fully like conscious about in the position I was, where I was working full time. But yeah, that seems to be where things are moving, and I'm on board right now. I obviously still want to be in 2D animation, working on TV. It's still my dream, but I have this opportunity now where I'm able to earn a bit more money and experiment again, and see new opportunities come in, say no to some things which I feel aren't the right fit, which is coming quite a long way in the last 3 years of saying yes to everything, but working hard enough to allow myself to not have to do that at this point. And yeah, so that's where I'm at and where I'm going. But I thought it'd be useful to kind of break down some roles, because the term digital content creator wasn't really a thing when I was in uni and before then. And content creator seemed like a very dirty word in a sense. It seemed to be like pushed by these websites like YouTube, that content was like just a generic term for shoveling stuff out there. So I think that people kind of are resistant to that term, but it's actually more common than you would expect. I mean, that was the job role I had at Nestle, and I'm seeing it all the time. But again, it wasn't a career path that I didn't expect to get from my animation degree, because it wasn't ever described to me. It was only ever like, the position I was in, it was basically, you're going to work on films, you're going to work on games, or you're not going to do anything. But no, this was a whole career which is, utilizes the skills that you learn through, After Effects and 3D software, the Creative Suite, all that stuff. And I understand, because like courses can only really specialize and focus on certain number of roles, and the phrasing and the way that people present job roles always change, and the internet's changing all the time. But that's what I would, if someone were to like ask what I do, and to sum it up, I would probably say digital content creator now, because it seems to be becoming a more common term. But yeah, I thought it'd be fun to sort of not just look at these fun icons of all the apps that you might want to know if you're heading into this career, or stuff that you can improve your experience on by heading in this career path, but also share all the names I could find for digital content creator on LinkedIn, because goodness me, all these career names are synonymous. So designer, which is what I first worked as, digital designer, because apparently it's not clear enough. Digital graphic designer, if that's not, digital content creator, we got it there. Multidisciplinary, I can't even say it, but yeah, working across different, not just mediums, but apps. Social media content creator, stick a phrase behind it. Branding motion designer, which sounds pretty fancy actually. Branding designer, if you want to be more concise. Motion graphics designer, which is what I would consider normally. Animator, which is what I like to be called. Animator and digital designer. These were all on LinkedIn. What else we got? Creative art worker, which that's, again, using the same skills that could apply to any of these job roles, any of these apps. This is like the name of the job that they were describing in their descriptions and everything. 2D artist, that's more leaning into like the illustration world, but I still saw that was like, you have to know how to use, you'd be beneficial from knowing how to animate, not just draw, and not this one. So yeah, and there's more. There was more that I didn't want to put on that slide. But yeah, I said it before, but it's true. Every motion graphics app and every app that you see here can allow some level of character animation. If that's something you're passionate about, like I am, I try and hack every one of these things to do what I want it to do. And by like having the industry experience in these apps, it really does help. Providing true opportunity to learn software and be paid for it. Like I mentioned, for my first couple months at doing Cartoon Saloon, I was basically on staff training and being paid for it, allowing being able to sustain myself on learning new software, which it's a bit of a flip of the coin to thinking about going to a school to pay and then train from there. Being paid to do it was something I never expected really. But yeah, another little tip that I kind of picked up from talking to recruiters, which has helped a little bit, is when you're putting together shots in your showreel, maybe consider labeling your portfolio with what apps you used to create it, because as much as I'll mention about how the software will always change, and there's lots of icons on this list for a reason, that it is valuable, I feel, for them to know, oh, this person can pick it up like that. In the same way that in my first opportunity, I had, I was able to say, yes, I can do Premiere and Final Cut and Photoshop. It's just one step removed, really, from explaining it to, to a recruiter. But yes, so in terms of actionable things, what can you do right now? I would recommend just making lots of things. Don't throw yourself into a daily video project if you don't have time for it. But try and find a way to to be able to make lots of stuff and see what hits, whether or not this is like a very public thing in terms of having an Instagram brand Instagram account or blog or Twitter account or something, or YouTube, and sharing it and getting a public reaction, even if it's just creating stuff and sharing it with your peers. And yeah, marketing yourself is a tricky one because I used to have multiple Instagram accounts for basically me. I mentioned I had created a brand for myself, and I also did music on the side, and then I had my personal thing, and it was just becoming too much to sort of. It was quite overwhelming to juggle all these profiles, and people were tagging things on the wrong thing, and it just made a lot more sense to be less precious about it. And I am the brand, especially as a freelancer. It became I am the brand, and it kind of cleared up my the space in my brain that holding multiple accounts sort of kept. But try not to be afraid to share stuff, because it can be really daunting, especially if, like in the instance I did, I closed all my other accounts, and this is my personal account, and I'm like, there's people from who knew me back in high school. What are they going to think to these strange, like this pig holding a slice of bacon? What are they going to think to that? Just, getting over the fact that if people don't want to see stuff, they will unfollow you, and that's okay, because you want to find new people, especially if you're trying to grow yourself as a brand. And sharing and documenting sort of the process behind making stuff is something I see all the time that people do on, not just on Instagram, but on blogs and stuff, but even TikTok, seeing not just people are like me, almost as fascinated with the behind the scenes of a project as the project itself. So try and find an outlet to sort of document the process, if not for other people, but for yourself, to solidify the processes and stand by your decisions that you've made. And on a public-facing thing, a thing that I had to get over was, why would people be interested in the process in what I make? Because I'm not as skilled as some other people, but the truth is that everyone will learn something from any discipline, any process, even if they know the same thing. That they won't be rolling their eyes, being like, "Oh, that's baby stuff." That's for them. It's a reassurance of "Oh, I do the same thing," and then maybe something else. They're like, "Oh, I do that differently." That was a big hurdle I had to get over mentally. And everyone, like I say, everyone is a beginner, and you'll be inspiring new people to start as well. So it was a real turning point for me, and I hope that you can find some way of being able to document what you make and feel proud about it. Back to this beast, this site. If, like I mentioned earlier, if you know your niche or what you truly want to do, then go for it. Because I'm kind of repeating myself here, but when you're asking for advice or reaching out to people, and you I really want to get into animation, but you know that you want to get into rigging. You're like, oh, I know this person and this person and this person who worked as riggers on the show. I can point you in this direction, rather than layers of conversation of okay, what kind of thing do you like to do? And for me, it felt a little bit embarrassing to sort of be like, oh gosh, I should have been more prepared. But the truth is, I'm not actually at the point where I have a niche yet. I have this dream of animating on a TV show, but I don't know if when I get there, am I going to love it? Because that's an experience I haven't had yet. So just if you do have an idea of it, then follow it, I would say. And don't discount other opportunities. You can always jump between careers. Everyone does that all the time, especially in TV. I've learned of people who've, started in as animators. And, my boss on a cartoon saloon, the boss of my team, started as an animator. She was like, I really want to be an animator. That's what I'm inspired to do. She did animation. She graduated like me with a degree, and then went to do animating in After Effects for a television show, which something I've never done, and realized that she doesn't like it, and fell into the idea of, okay, I'm going to do some other stuff. She did some scene prepping, which is what I was doing at Dog Is, and then she found that rigging was that was a path for her to get to rigging, because scene prep, you have lots of different things in front of you, the different technical sides, the creative sides. She fell into rigging, and then worked as a rigger for years, and now is an assistant director on a show. But that to me taught me that it's okay to jump between things and, find new opportunities you wouldn't never expect. And yeah, just stay creative. And yeah, another thing that I mentioned about sharing things privately and publicly. Consider the idea of a group chat to share works in progress with your peers that you get on with, and allow yourself to be challenged. I'd say by feedback, and start conversations, not just to have affirmation. I stick things in my group chat just to be like, I hope people say nice things about it. But I mentioned my partner earlier, and she's amazing, but she's my biggest critic, and she will be the first person to be like, have you thought about doing it like this? Have you thought about doing something a little bit differently like this? And it's not out. I had to learn that she doesn't just hate me. It's actually that she has this. She wants me to be the best that she knows I can be, and not taking it so personally, even though she's literally the most personal person in my life. That was a big thing to overcome. So just something to consider. Okay, I'm going to end with just a few things that people don't really tell you, or at least I didn't learn in the world of content creation. And there's just a few things that, like I mentioned before, it's becoming a norm. It's becoming regular to work for companies to be hiring freelancers. Is what I'm experiencing right now as being freelance full time. People will have a full staff, but they will hire freelancers who have specific specific niches or skill sets that they require for a project. Or a lot of the time, they're over capacity. You think about the number of projects that were thrown the way of the agency that I first worked at. They only have a certain amount of designers on staff. They can't just, for one project, go and hire a new, full-time thing right away, because there's layers and layers of process. So it's becoming normal, and people are realizing the benefit on all sides of it, I think. And we're entering what I've heard being described as a gig economy, which, is a similar sort of strange term to digital content creator, but that's what I'm seeing, and I'm finding these opportunities in, like how I was tagged in that Facebook post 3 years ago or whenever it was, that in LinkedIn and Facebook groups. LinkedIn can be a bit of a scary site and can feel quite a little bit depressing sometimes, the number of people celebrating things, but within that there's a group of people who just want to help each other out and give each other opportunities. And those are the posts that you've really got to look out for. And try to be friendly. That people do like to help each other and give each other opportunities when they find them. I've been able to return a bunch of favors to the family of this the person who originally tagged me in a Facebook post years ago, with their creative endeavors and everything. And the more you're likely to offer to other people, they'll be likely to want to return the favor. I think it's about being friendly, even though it seems a little bit like markety and networky. I think the friendship comes first, at least in my experiences, and I'm lucky to have people in the creative industry who are friends first. And I do think that freelancing needs. I don't know what sort of learnings there are in for you guys in terms of the world of freelancing, but I was terrified even end of last year about going freelance, because I didn't know anything about managing my own business, about dealing with taxes, the periods in time in which I would have no work and thinking that I'm terrible. That, at least in my university experience, it was sort of touched on. It's just you can freelance if you want, but you probably want to work at a studio. And I think allowing opportunities to teach about taxes, which are terribly boring but terribly necessary in order to actually manage your company, it's a bit overwhelming. So preparing, I think, is I think that's would be a good step forward for educators in the future. And like I mentioned, agencies and in-house, they do employ freelancers as well as full-time employees. So something to consider. The equipment that you have, people always have said to me, like, if you go into 3D especially, you need like a big beefy computer that can do all the stuff. It's not actually 100% true that you need the best gear to make stuff, and a lot of people say like it's not the tools you use, it's how you use them and everything. But yeah, in some industries like 3D, you need a computer you think you need a computer which has got like a great graphics card or a great processor. But studios, through the pandemic, as I'm sure you guys have experienced in a way of changed to a hybrid or remote kind of working, they'll have tons of computers on site in their studios, at least in the experiences I've had, and you remote control into these computers from your computer, and essentially just move the mouse around, and it's like it's not exactly one-to-one speed, but it's as if you've got this big beefy computer in your home. And I think that those opportunities are actually moving out from just a school and a college and university environment to also these graphics card companies are offering anyone in the public with a price tag to essentially rent out computers to do work on remotely, because they're seeing the benefit of people not spending loads of money on these power hungry stuff. So just another thing is, like, you guys have an amazing facility here, and I was very like, oh my god, I wish I went here. You likely have some great gear to work on. If you have the access to use it, I feel like use it as much as possible, because during my university time I didn't spend that much time in the labs, I'll be honest. So take it while you can. Not the tools, it's the technique, and reiterating, entry-level jobs will sometimes offer training. So even if there's an opportunity available where it's like experience required in this app, if you have app knowledge which is adjacent to that, such as the situation I was in, maybe still consider applying for the job, because they might see your portfolio and the show reel of what you've got, and they can be like, oh, we can train you a little bit to get you to do that stuff on this platform, and also, companies use different versions of software than what's actually out there, because depending on when they start the production, it could be years of using an old version of an app. So don't always be fearful of I need to know the newest version of this software with all the latest tools and stuff. It can be quite varied, so they need to retrain people anyway, get people up to speed. Excuse me. So just a brief mention about 2D animation right now. I've hopped on about Toon Boom. I think all unis in the UK should be teaching this if they're wanting to offer 2D animation in the form of character animation. It's a very complicated app, which, like I said, I only really managed to understand it during my time working in industry, and I think that people would get a good sort of head start, at least being, have a foundational knowledge on it, because it's really expensive. I think not as a student, the premium model of it is ridiculous, £100 and something a month to use the software, and the premium version is the one which all these studios will be using and will require knowledge of. So it's having being able to teach students, I think, is very valuable for this. And also use student discounts. You probably already know that because you're smart. But the price of Harmony literally goes down, I think, 80% if you use a student discount. Right now we're living in a boom of animation, which is it was told to me on one of my first days working at Cartoon Saloon, because we were in the middle of a pandemic. There was these opportunities for studios to, or rather lack of opportunity for studios to make live action content because of the rigorous health and safety processes that went into, at the time and still to this day, to make sure actors aren't sick or getting other people sick. It's slowed down production so much. But when you think about, we can make a show which is, people can work from all around the world, that people don't, there's no live actors involved in terms of Contact. It's created this big boom of new animated shows on all platforms, and given the amount of time that it takes for shows to be developed, I don't think this is going to stop very soon. I think this is just going to keep coming in the number of years. So if you are interested in getting involved in 2D animation, it's the right time to start researching it. But because there's more shows and because there's these studios are opening up this wider bracket of people to hire, there's definitely going to be more competition. So just keep that in mind, I would say. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can imagine it's been a bit of a stressful few years for me, but it has honestly been exciting, new, and something I never expected. Definitely unique. And in the moments I look back on as like the right things that I've done have always been the moments where I've trusted my gut, going for the Nestle job, going into the freelance opportunities because I felt that I needed to explore what that was like. But yeah, the best part of it has always just been finding other people and that energy, whether it be online or in person, finding people who share the same love and learning not to be jealous of other people's, skills and understand that everyone's just, if the right kind of people to hang around, they want you to succeed just as much as you want them to succeed. And yeah, I've learned to try and not put my work down so much. For sure, that's that. I think that comes with the territory as a creative. We always kind of say that our work is bad, and it's like, oh no, it's terrible. But I'm learning to showcase what it is that I love to do and learn to love myself, I guess, as part of it. And yeah, celebrate the little victories because life is stressful and always be making stuff. And that's it. That's everything. Thank you very much for my time.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Really fascinating talk, and I think it's great that we've heard the freelance perspective because a lot of talks you've had were from artists with companies, so it's really good to have that additional side to the industry. I think we've got a few moments for a couple of questions. Is that okay? So do we have any questions? I see Kibu with his hand up, actually quite a few. Cheers.
If there is one thing you enjoy about 2D animation, what is it and why, I presume?
Yeah, I love 2D animation. Like, I like everything about 2D animation. I like the medium of harking back to the to the idea of everything is hand drawn and very coming up from scratch. It's always been a fascinating medium to me. But the thing I enjoy most about it is, I'd say, actually the story side of it, coming up with characters and coming up with what they're going to do. Even though I don't have the skills for it, I don't have the chops, I don't really at this time have the drawing skills to lead up to that. Just the idea of bringing characters to life in some way has always appealed to me, and I'll be continuing to do that as long as I am allowed to.
Hi.
Yeah.
When working at home or for a client or for your own personal projects, how do you stay motivated?
Oh boy. Yeah. So it's really hard. There's I'm not alone in saying that there's constantly distractions at your fingertips with social media, with things like LinkedIn, and the fact it's so easy to just be transported away from your work and suddenly feel quite, not just overwhelmed, but like you're not working hard enough, can really grind you to a halt, at least in my case. The ways that I continue to try and stay motivated is keeping myself varied, doing different things. I very much don't like sitting still. So the fact I have my comic and the fact that I am lucky enough to have different kinds of projects to work on from different clients, blocking my time out effectively, that unless I really want to do something 2 days in a row, I'm not solidly doing that all the time, keeping my mind on new exciting things. That's the best way I can say it. And also trying to limit my time on social media, I think. I know it works well for a lot of people, and I'm definitely not the kind of person to say no one should be using it, but I've learned, in the past year or so that it doesn't sit right with me, and it takes time away. So yeah, just finding the things that work for you, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Is your art style based on anything?
Oh, that's a great question. I was actually, I put together a list of shows and stuff that inspired me growing up, but didn't really have that much time to go into it. But yeah, I grew up loving shows like the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, sort of that late 90s, early 2000s era of Cartoon Network. That was sort of like what I obsessed over, going into like Fairly Odd Parents on Nickelodeon and stuff. Joe Murray is an artist I really look up to, who created the show Rocko's Modern Life, who used these like abstract shapes and crazy colors inspired by like the 90s era. And while it's something I don't always replicate, it's something I always look at as inspiration. And yeah, I mean, I mentioned Eswold, which was a very influential web show for me, and yeah, I've taken some inspiration from that over the years. But yeah, those sort of shows, mainly late 90s Cartoon Network.
Okay, so you might have answered this already, but I was just wondering, was there ever a moment where you thought, yes, I want to do this? You knew you wanted to do animation as a career. So, for example, you were like at a film festival or something, and like the light bulb just went off in your head, and you were just like, yes, this is what I want to do. Was there ever that moment?
Yeah, for sure. I briefly mentioned about like I was watching a lot of behind the scenes content when I was growing up, like seeing how things were made. I think during that time I was really like putting myself in the position of like, oh, I could be in one of these seats, making something. I think about that one particular behind the scenes moment in retrospect, but there wasn't a singular moment. I think I just kept drawing and didn't stop. And it's only in hindsight I look back and I was like, I was doing a lot of that, so it sort of just made sense. But yeah.
Cool, thanks.
No worries.
Hi. When you were getting back into practicing 2D animation, what was something that really helped you understand the fundamentals a lot better?
Yeah, that's a great question, because yeah, when you don't do it for a long time, it can feel alien to you, the practice of animation. But the things I did to sort of remember the fundamentals was to excuse me, I recognized them. I was very rusty, but again, my partner was really supportive in this, that she wrote down 30 prompts, so each 30 different single word prompts, and hid them from me so I couldn't see them. And I was like, every day I want to try and do a new animation based on this prompt. So she would, I'd get to my, like, I occupied like a period of time after my lunch break, and in the way of flexible working, to be like, I'm going to do an animation at this time every day. So after lunch, I'd be like, okay, what's my prompt today? It'd be like leaf. And I'm like, okay, what are the principles that I can apply to this to, test them? And some of them turned out really rubbish because, I forced myself to try and remember things and apply principles to it that might have been wrong, but you learn from it after it goes out. You put it out and you're like, yeah, that's wrong, but I wouldn't have learned without doing it in the first place. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Hi. Being a freelance artist, how often do you wait between taking jobs from different clients? Are you constantly on the search for new work, or do you do something, finish it, and wait a few months and then go into more work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm lucky enough that I've sort of, in the way that I yeah, I sort of got a bit of a head start when I was still working full time, getting work ahead of time. Yeah, I've been very lucky so far to always have a project to work on. There hasn't been a dip yet, and I've only been working, excuse me, freelance 3 months now, but there hasn't been too many moments where I've been like, I don't have anything to do. I'm struggling. But I mentioned like still going on job sites and stuff. Probably too much, but yeah, always keeping myself aware of things. Having updating my show when I'm not working on new stuff for other clients, working on my show reel, thinking about what could go in there, what could replace old stuff. Just it's that's what I've been able to experience so far. But we'll see where it goes over the year.
Anybody else? I think we're all done. Ready to wrap up? You got any questions, Jake? Can I just ask a question, if that's
Absolutely,
okay?
yeah.
So, you seem like a very organised guy, and I did step out for a short while, so I don't know if I missed a couple of slides.
Sure.
Do you have any kind of schedule that you kind of put together, like a Gantt chart or anything like that, that kind of helps you stay on top of things? Or?
Yeah, so I'm notorious for trying every to-do list app on the planet and then hating it. I've experienced a lot of them to like actually find a workflow that works for me, because I'm always like, I want to stay more organized. What's going to be like the most helpful app or system to do that? But what I eventually landed on when working on freelance part-time was, funnily enough, just sticky notes and a whiteboard where I've written Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekend. And when there's a new project, writing a post-it note on it, sticking it on the day that I think I could either get it done by or dedicate time to on it. And, not necessarily having a hard deadline of a time of day on it, sometimes doing that, but allowing myself to be like, if it gets to Wednesday and I haven't done it, being like, okay, move it to Thursday or move it to the next week, the next slot available. Just having that constantly above my desk, being like, this is my week, has been quite helpful. But I understand people prefer digital systems, but it's just what I've landed on right now, and what's worked for me so far. But yeah, having that, and then having a spreadsheet for all the economics and stuff, the business side of things, just to make it look a bit more official. But really, it's just post-it notes.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Any more questions then before we kind of wrap up? No, I do have a question myself.
Sure.
Obviously, you've worked in a studio and worked kind of in-house with Nestle, and now you're doing freelance. With that knowledge, are you grateful or glad that you made that move to freelance?
Yeah. At this time in my life, definitely, yeah. It felt like the right time, even though I had to be convinced to actually make the jump. It was throughout this whole period of having full-time work in different studios. It was definitely something that I wanted to try. And again, it was because I'd done the part-time work that I had this client base to be like, basically giving myself a year of risk to do it. And so far it's been paying off. I think that what will happen for me, or what I want to happen for me going forward, is, having this business that I've created for myself in not the back burner, but ongoing, and then hopefully doing television jobs, and in the breaks between these jobs, because television work is always usually 6-12-month contracts. They're not very long. They're not like full-time work in how you can climb corporate ladders and everything. Having the time between jobs to be able to, like, I have this established business already, and keep myself creative. That's the short-term plan.
Wicked, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right then, folks, that is pretty much time. So let's just give Alex Hollings a big round of applause.
Thank you very much.